Kyle Schwarber is absolutely raking the baseball right now, and I do not think he's getting enough attention about it. The prized free agent returnee, who there was a little concern that he could walk right out of the organization this offseason, is back in full fashion in a Phillies uniform and delivering as advertised. Another player who has been as advertised is Zack Wheeler, settling back into his ace role on this Phillies team. Do want to highlight a little bit of the star outlook right here and why this is such a difference maker for this Phillies team. And do want to start off right off the bat with Kyle Schwarber, who's just absolutely mashing the baseball right now. He is currently on pace to hit 67 home runs this season, which no one has done in MLB history. I think for myself and a lot of us, there was a little bit of concern of, was last year an outlier year? And that was very tied to these contract conversations that we were having. What is the true value of Kyle Schwarber? Obviously, a guy that is a designated hitter, doesn't give you any value in the field right there, but when you can hit like this, boy, is it worth the pretty penny that he did sign on for right here. To put it in perspective, I'm recording this right before tonight's matchup against the Boston Red Sox, that across Kyle Schwarber's last 5 games, he's had 1 home run, another home run, a 2 home run game, and another home run game. That is 6 home runs in 5 games. I believe he has 9 RBIs across that stretch as well, and it almost feels automatic to this point. I've mentioned this before, but the coolest thing about Kyle Schwarber home runs to me is there's never a, ooh, could that one get out? Every time he hits a home run, it is just, the second it hits the bat, man. And there's something about that intimidation factor, along with obviously the production, that does matter when opposing pitchers are lined up against him in the box. Now, one thing that I think is a little bit interesting is his relationship with the Boston Red Sox. This was a guy, and once again, flashing back to the free agent conversation, this was a guy that a lot of Red Sox fans and, media members had circled for, could this be the addition that this team needs? And Schwarber was asked a little bit about the conversation, which I do think was interesting here. And what he said about the Red Sox pursuing him as a free agent this offseason is, quote, "We had a phone call, the Zoom, whatever it is. There was a conversation. The Sox pursuit kind of just started and ended with the conversation. The Red Sox never made an offer." And I do think it was largely talked about as a foregone conclusion around the league that Kyle Schwarber was just going to be back in Philadelphia. But it does surprise me that there was not more desperation to get this caliber of bat on other MLB rosters right there. Kyle Schwarber is very quickly climbing the list of best power hitters in Phillies baseball history right there. And frankly, it does not seem like he's showing any signs of slowing down right there. Now, another guy that I did want to make sure that I gave the proper love to was Zack Wheeler. Obviously, there were some questions about him coming into the year as well after getting shut down due to that blood clot issue last year, going through the thoracic outlet surgery the way that he did, and Zack Wheeler is back to looking dominant. I will say my level of concern was a little bit heightened when the velocity was not there in his minor league starts. But what we see is Zack Wheeler looking like Zack Wheeler, man. Shout out to our guy Luke Arcani, who tweets out, "It took Zack Wheeler 16 pitches to get through 3 innings tonight. That is the lowest amount of pitches through 3 innings of his career, and the lowest in Major League Baseball since 2000, according to the NBC broadcast." And to add a couple more stats on Wheeler, Corey Seidman tweets, "We've grown so used to Zack Wheeler's mastery that it flies under the radar that since the start of 2025, he's been even better than his best single season. Lower whip, higher strikeout rate, lower walk rate, and opponent's OBP of exactly 253 for the 3rd straight year. He is just a horse, man, and that is a dying breed in today's MLB. That what you're going to get from Zack Wheeler just about every single time that he steps on the mound, and it's pretty cool to see the rapid rate that he's returned to that form right there. That I did think there was a world where there were some short-term struggles with Zack Wheeler, that he would get hit around a little bit in his first couple starts, where he begins to resettle in to what that shoulder motion is. Can he, throw the pitches as advertised, find ways to set up things? The fastball did not look sharp in the minors, and ultimately that is back to being exactly the way it is. This pitching staff still needs to be the foundation of this Phillies team. That's clearly the way that they've sort of rearranged the deck, stacked their chips in a specific area here. Christopher Sanchez has answered the bell. Jesus Luzardo, for the most part, has answered the bell this season. Zack Wheeler, absolutely back as advertised. Of course, we're not going to have the Taijuan Walker or Aaron Nola conversation, and hope Taijuan's doing well in the free agent market right there. But ultimately, this is a pitching staff that needs to be dominant. I did not mention Andrew Painter, who's on the mound ahead of tonight's game. It's been pretty scary looking stretches for Andrew Painter. Let up 8 earned runs in his last start, has allowed 3+ earned runs in 4 straight entering tonight. But that's all the more reason for why there is value at the top of the rotation. For Painter, we should not be hitting the panic button just yet, even though if I can't lie, internally, I feel like I'm there a little bit based on what we're seeing on the mound. But he's a guy that is going to have to take his lumps. He's a rookie for a reason. That 6.89 ERA certainly is not pretty, but it's one that you got to battle through, man. Your first time through facing major league pitching, especially when you factor in him really not looking that sharp in the major leagues leading up to this point, there's going to be some problems there. Hopefully in the long run, this is, him getting carved through the fire here, him earning his chances, finding himself at the major league level, and that he does eventually settle in. And I think it is far too soon to ultimately make any sort of determination there. Now, another guy I did want to bring up here is Trea Turner. And Trea Turner has been a guy that, while in the larger scale of this Phillies team, just about everyone has settled into what their normal is, what this team needs them to be. Trea Turner is a bit of an exception to that. And I bring this up to say that Trea Turner was scratched from today's lineup, and Scott Lauber tweets out that Trea Turner is ill, Don Mattingly said. The Phillies will assess if he's able to come off the bench at some point tonight. I understand, and there's very well a chance that he is just straight up ill, feeling under the weather, and they wanted to give him a day off right there. There's also a part of me that kind of has on the conspiracy hat of this may be Don Mattingly's way of just giving him a night off, giving him a refreshed mindset right here. We sort of saw the effects in a pretty positive fashion with Alec Boehm, him getting benched for 2 games, returning to hit 2 home runs, which is unheard of from Alec Boehm standards right there. Pretty damn good result. I still haven't exactly figured out how Don Mattingly does work with his players. We're beginning to get a wider and wider window into his mindset as far as managing a baseball team. But I do wonder if this was tied to things. For Trea Turner, I do think he's climbing up the lists of biggest disappointments on the Phillies this year, and it was pretty competitive list at the start of the season. He's one of the few guys that hasn't really dug himself out of it. He had a largely excellent season last year. The defense was so much better at shortstop right there. He obviously led the National League in batting average, turned himself into really a pure contact hitter. But one thing that I thought was interesting is Rob Thomson really leading the charge with Trea of, we only want you to be a contact hitter. We're not worried about home runs. Find the gaps, hit singles, get on base, be a little bit of a terror on the base path. And I will say stealing bases is something I certainly wish he would do at a higher rate that I kind of expected when he came to Philadelphia, and has not been the case. Sure, he still steals a bag here or two, but he's not one of these guys that impose fear in opposing pitchers when they are on the mound. Even a guy like Justin Crawford, I think, has a little bit more of that. The way that pitchers are constantly paying attention, the way he's dancing a little bit right there. I would like Trea to tap into that. But ultimately, you don't get paid the big bucks just to steal bases, and he's got to hit the baseball, man. It has not been good enough for Trea Turner. And I do hope that this is the start of that turnaround. It is a long season. We're all well aware of the marathon that baseball is, and the Phillies could certainly benefit from Trea returning to form. On the other hand here, maybe it is a positive that all these guys have ultimately returned to form for the most part. Bryce Harper looking elite, Kyle Schwarber mashing baseballs, Brandon Marsh leading the National League in batting average right now. There's a ton of good that we can take from, and you can think that this team collectively could raise another level if Turner can just return to form. So ultimately, in the wider scale these past couple weeks, it's been good to be a Phillies fan, man. That it's been nice to watch this team compete, to play the quality of baseball that we expected coming into the season. This team still should be viewed through the contending lens, even despite them digging the hole that they did to start the season. They're doing a pretty impressive job of scrapping out of it at a very rapid rate right there. So ultimately, got to close down business, take care of this Boston Red Sox team, and continue climbing, picking up as many wins as possible. It is not the easiest path that they laid out for themselves, but ultimately they still can accomplish all their preseason aspirations. So we'll see how things do shake out from here. But did want to shout out Kyle Schwarber, Zack Wheeler specifically for helping settle this team in, and really the Phillies finding themselves once again. So let me know where your guys' heads at are all on that in the comments. Throw a little bit of love for Kyle Schwarber below. Would love to hear your guys' thoughts below. Appreciate you guys for tuning in as always. If you have not just yet, make sure you're smashing that subscribe button to the channel. Hit a like on this video. I'll be back talking to you next time right here on Phillies Digest. Peace.